panel for the exhibition Ritmo del Baile. In this exhibition, the first in a series to be held in New York City during the latter part of 2004 and throughout 2005, the artist departs from the issues set forth in Taino Natives, which was held at the Puerto Rico Gallery in 1998. And you see the rear of the gallery, for example, pieces from this exhibition. In Ritmo del Baile, the viewer is impacted by a number of formal issues that underline the excellent draftsmanship that these drawings in crayon and acrylic encompass. The viewer cannot help but feel the overpowering impact and strength of movement. Motion is crucial to the works. The motion of beating the drum, the motion and movement of dance, and even the movement of stillness. This is a world of pulsating gyrations where the conscious and the unconscious become one and the same. Lines are blurred. Rashid has learned well from the lessons from historical references, adapting them to his own vernacular. Let us look at Ritmo del Baile number 5, number 8, and number 10 in this exhibit. And at once we see portraying abstractions that make Michelangelo's poses and compositions so understandable. These distortions of the human figure are a motif that runs throughout his oeuvre. And the lessons learned from Matisse in many compositions, such as Ritmo del Baile number 2 and number 5, clearly evidence the joy of dance and of life as in the work's master. Rashid revels in his diasporic African roots, but he does not deny them either. He underlines how deeply inspired these roots are in Spanish and Portuguese-speaking America, yet, and in spite of this, these works are not literal translations of Hispanic, Caribbean, or South American folklore. These works are steeped in folklore, specifically the religious mythologies, rituals, and celebrations of West Africa. In the Western musical tradition, many of the great masters incorporated folklore into their compositions, but their music goes beyond folklore. And as Rashid's oeuvre goes beyond dance and is about the celebration and the joy of life, we are able to visually experience the joie de vivre from an Africanizing perspective. This is a shared experience in which everyone is participant. Graceful movement is the underlying essence of this work. Ultimately, the movements so essential to these works are about the grace of the human form, a grace that is non-Western and that regardless of it, is found in Brazil, in the way a dancer holds a skirt, or in a Puerto Rican bomba, saluted to the drums, in which the female dancer flirts with the drums throughout her movements and the manipulation of her garments. And in Cuba and the Dominican Republic, the same is true. Wherever there is an Africanizing presence, these and many other elements have unified blacks across oceans, throughout centuries, and beyond borders.
Hello, my name is Rashid. I'm the artist, and I want to welcome you to my exhibition of paintings and drawings titled Ritmo del Baile, based on a series of pictures dealing with dance and drums and trying to capture the energy and the flow of our African roots. As you know, that in the Caribbean, there was importation of slaves, and they left behind a very rich culture that today is still vibrant, and I've tried to capture the energy and the excitement and the intense passion that's involved in our music. I want you to look at the various works so you can see some of the imagery that has inspired me and that I hope will inspire you. In this picture right here, most people when they see African mask think of the mask as being a beautiful artwork, but in the African culture, the mask is only alive when it's like in a masquerade, when the dancer has the mask on his head. He then transforms himself into this spirit and energy. And this is, I think, a good example of what happens. Over here we have another one. This one here more in color, with the red mask and the dancer in the back with raffia, which moves as the dancer moves. The raffia flows, and you get this feeling. And then you have one dancer here, and this leopard representing the leopard. And this series is more based on Africa. And here you have a powerful figure that they use to protect the people and the village from evil, and to bring, help with the harvest, and to help, fight some of the powerful negative forces that exist in the world. Okay, in this image here, you will see the dancers. Many times the female dancers will wear turbans and usually white dresses that they swirl, and when they dance, they grab onto it and swirl. And the swirling images of the dancer's body, gyrating, in the space. And then in the background, you have the other people, celebrating. The colors just try to represent the energy, and the lines try to create the flow, because when you're working with a two-dimensional surface, it's flat, and the artist has this challenge to try to create depth and movement. And this one over here is a little bit more darker and so on, but the same thing too. You get the swirl of the dancing figures sort of silhouetted against a light that could come from barn fires or some kind of lighting and so on, and it gives a kind of a mystical feeling to it. And here you see the drummer playing a bata, double-headed drum, and as he's playing, the dancers dancing to the rhythms are in the background. You get the force of the power of the drummer beating the hypnotic beats that are part of the ritual and the dance. Here we have a more expressionistic view of dancers. And this one here, just the vibrant colors and the soft, warm colors creating a kind of shimmering effect on the dancing bodies. In this painting, as the drummers play, you have a drummer here to the left, and then you have a dancer, to the right. And as the dance unfolds, the drummers are almost in a trance-like feeling, in a trance, and therefore their bodies are undulating to the sounds and the rhythms and so on, and the colors kind of give you the feeling of the mood being created by the different rhythms. In this one you have a male and a female dancer dancing with the raffia skirts, and as they dance, the skirts lift and fall, like waves. They create a beautiful rhythm of line going up and down, and then in the background you have the viewers with the audience and the rest of the people participating in this, and they just kind of like in a blue-gray atmosphere in the back. This one here with the purple, yellow moon, and the dancers in this case probably dancing with a lot more energy and and excitement and so on, and then the bodies are kind of like glowing, almost as if they're on fire. You know, so that I chose yellow and reds to create this kind of heat that these dancing figures will produce. And the background has blues and greens, a little bit of mauve, just to kind of add a kind of a contrast to the heat and movement of the dancers. This one here is a little bit more lighter, a little bit more exuberant with the three dancing females. And this one here, just the play of the color and the shapes create a kind of a flow and a movement. It almost has a kind of a liquid effect, you know, maybe almost like as if they were dancing in water and so on. This painting here is very, very profound. The three drummers are being blessed by the Santera with three scarves, and she's placing the purple scarf over the second drummer, who is obscured by her body, and this one represents Oshun. And then this drummer here has a red scarf, which represents the very powerful Shango. Then the rest of the exhibit has some pen and ink drawings that I did, because as you are aware, in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean, we have a very diverse historical roots. The initial people that were there had come from Orinoco Valley in South America, Orinoco River, Amazonian, maybe even as far as the Amazon. Arawak people. And the Tainos were another source of inspiration as I was trying to retrace my own background and the background of various Puerto Ricans. We are not only, some of us have the three cultures or the three different groups as part of our makeup. Of course we know of the Spanish, coming from being the European element, and then we know of the slaves coming from Africa, but the indigenous people who were there before and were on the way to creating a very powerful and very significant civilization were the Tainos. And the Tainos who were living in Puerto Rico, which of course that was Borinquen. They were living in Hispaniola, which is the name for Dominican Republic in Haiti was Quisqueya, and then Jamaica, which was Jamaica, was the Taino name for Jamaica, and then you had Cuba, and Cuba's name was
Cubanacan.
That's where you get the Cuba from. And they also were in the Bahamas also. When I decided to do these drawings based on the Tainos, I wanted to show not only the indigenous people doing various activities, but I also wanted to show the indigenous animals and flora that existed. And since I live in Luquillo, I decided to base all the drawings on Luquillo and the rainforest and the surrounding beaches, which has wetlands and mangrove swamps. So in these very detailed pen and ink drawings, I show the Tainos who hunted the iguanas because they use them as one of their staple foods, especially for meat. Since in Puerto Rico, the only mammals that existed prior to the Europeans coming was a kind of rodent that's a large rodent that lived in the swamps and so on, which they exterminated because they ate it. It must have been quite delicious. And then you had the iguanas. Of course, you had fish and and birds. There were no, and they had snakes too, no poisonous snakes, but boas. and there was no other mammals beside this particular rodent, and they believe that they brought a dog along too. In this picture here, you'll see lizard, a tree snail, and an insect, and along with ferns, which are there's all the different varieties of ferns exist in the rainforest. Some very tiny, some larger, and they're all quite beautiful. And then here we have a picture of 2 Puerto Rican parrots in the Sierra Palm, which is where they used to, the seeds of the Sierra is was one of their food sources. And as you know, the Puerto Rican parrot was almost on the brink of its extinction until they decided to try to preserve it. They took eggs and they took the existing birds and they cultivated the eggs, and then they've been reintroducing the parrots into the rainforest again. Last year, I think they introduced about 35 parrots that have been grown in this very secret place that they have in the rainforest. And the parrot is quite beautiful. It's green and it has like a red throat, and it's a small parrot about this size, quite noisy, but very shy, very difficult to see. In this picture we have a dove and we have a tree boa just slowly, sliding through the branch, ready to pounce on the unsuspected dove. Here we have the land crab, waves, and these live in the mangroves. And as they dig their little burrows or holes into the swamp, they pull out the mud and they mound it up into these mounds, which you'll see the big land crab on the top putting the mud into this heap. In this picture here, I did put a Taino. I didn't show the Taino. Most of the Taino Indians, which are part of this series, are not in this exhibit. This was mainly to just show the flora and the fauna that existed in the rainforest. But you'll have a Taino guide showing the rest of the Tainos, probably pointing up towards the Junque, because it was a very sacred, Junque was a very sacred place where they thought that the gods resided. And Huracan, which was a powerful divine energy and force, which they named the hurricanes after. And since the rainforest always attracted all the clouds and the rain, and when the hurricanes came, they felt that it probably resided up in the rainforest. This picture here, we have the guaraguao, or the red-tailed hawk, which is one of the most common hawks that still exist in Puerto Rico. And they have all kinds of stories and songs and stuff based on the guaraguao. Here we have the Taino dugout canoe, probably going out to fish, accompanied by a brown pelican. The brown pelicans were also they're almost on the verge of extinction, but thank God that they've been protected and they seem to be flourishing throughout the Caribbean and Puerto Rico, especially in Luquillo. I've always seen about sometimes 20, 30 of them. This top one, I showed Luquillo, the Luquillo Public Beach, which is right, it's a beautiful beach because it has a beautiful, calm beach, silhouetted with you can see the rainforest in the background, silhouetted, and it's quite majestic. It's probably one of the few places in Puerto Rico that you can have a beach and then the mountains close by. I took a little bit of artistic license putting palm trees in there because I thought that if the kids were going to see pictures of the area around the beaches surrounding the rainforest, now they're heavily populated with coconut palms, And I decided to put the Tainos climbing the palm trees to get coconuts. This most likely did not exist, but you know, I thought that if kids were going to relate to the Tainos and they have coconuts all over the island, that the Indians should be displayed, showing them using the palm fronds and so on to build their huts and weaving their baskets that they would use in fishing. This is the mouth of a river right near where Rio Mar, the resort is, and this is the Mamayas. I think it's the Mamayas River that goes that opens up into the public beach. It'll be located somewhere on that side, and then we have a tern flying by. We have terns, gulls, pelicans, frigate birds, and all the other birds that generally surround the tropical seascapes. In this picture here, we have a Taino Indian. In the background, there's some silhouettes of Tainos bathing. In the many, and Puerto Ricans to this day still love to go into the various creeks and quebradas and so on, and some of these little charcos where the rain coming off the rainforest has created these natural pools. And then also there was gold, and this Indian over here would be mining, trying to pick up the gold nuggets that were inside the river. And to this day, you could probably still find some little, if you were allowed to, in the rainforest, you could still probably find some little tiny bits of gold. All the pictures here were done with the intention of trying to provide some kind of a background for the Puerto Ricans and for anybody else interested in terms of the two cultures that were, I thought, instrumental in making us who we are, Boricuas, people of Puerto Rico. We have Taino roots, African roots, and European roots. I think that the show, to me, is a very valuable show because there are very few artists that have taken the time to really give you the total picture of what it is to be a Puerto Rican.
How does somebody get in touch with you if they're interested in your artwork?
Well, if you're interested in my artwork, you can always contact me, email sufitumba@yahoo.com. That's SUFITUMBA@yahoo.com.
And where do you usually have your stuff exhibited, in New York City or in Puerto Rico?
Well, I haven't exhibited in Puerto Rico, but I have exhibited in New York. In 1996, I exhibited the complete Tainos del Chonque series at the Taller Boricua on 106th and Lexington Avenue. And then this show at the Philosophy Box, which was from 2 November to 13 November, which showed my Rumba series and the half of the Taino drawings. And hopefully there'll be another show coming up at the college at the Centro de Estudios Borinquen. That'll be sometime in the spring. And there's some other shows that are in the works that will happen sometime. Maybe 2 more shows in 2005.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll be looking forward to the exhibition at Hunter College in springtime of 2005.
Thank you, and I hope that you have a chance to see the show before it closes. And if not, remember Rashid. Well, I just retired from teaching after 28 years of teaching art history and art. And I started from preschool, and I ended up in intermediate school and high school. And this was one of the inspirations for doing the the Taino and even the African paintings was that I wanted the students to get a glimpse of, from an artist's point of view, what we thought was happening and what we think is important. This picture here, which was the opening picture for the series, was the Indians on their dugout canoes, probably coming from, they had to island hop across the Antilles, and leaving probably St. Thomas, maybe in this case they just probably been to Vieques, and then they're coming around and just looking at, they just came around and they just came to where Luquillo is now, and they're pointing, and he's pointing to El Junque. And this is the Indians in their long dugout canoes. And they were ocean-going dugout canoes, probably from some hardwood, trees 100 feet, long, that they dug out and that they used them to transport themselves across the Caribbean. In this picture here, we have a typical view of a wetland mangrove swamp with this is representative of the seed of the mangrove, that when it breaks off, it has this kind of almost like dagger-like point that drops off into the mud, and from there another tree starts. They're very difficult trees to eradicate because once they plant it, they just keep sending out roots and they just keep on going. And this picture here is a manatee, and they still have manatees in Puerto Rico. They're very shy and creatures. They're large. They're over 10 feet, and they eat